What's going on YouTube? This is Rybo at the bench, and tonight I have another cut or carry knife review. Tonight looking at the Massdrop Laconico Keen. So this is actually the second time that I've filmed this review. So the first time I borrowed this knife from a friend, and I absolutely fell head over heels in love with it. Just, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm ruining a lot of the conclusion and takeaway, but I absolutely love this knife. Because of that, I had to send it back, obviously. That was the bronzed, oil rubbed, whatever bronze finish. And I very, very quickly purchased my own. So I purchased the purple version from someone else. I'll talk a little bit about that. But I thought, I had filmed a review, but I've carried the knife a lot more since then, and really nothing from my review has changed, except I've just fallen even more in love with the knife. But I figured, why not just do it with my own version of the knife, since this is kind of what will be in the collection going forward. Also, normally I would do the size and weight check right now. We will check the weight, but I gave my my 3-year-old son my calipers the other day. We were hanging out in the workshop together, and he was very interested in what the tool was that Daddy was using. So I handed him my calipers, and I looked away, I kid you not, 10 seconds, and I found them in these pieces. So I have not been able to get this back together. This is a cheap set of Amazon digital calipers. I don't really think it's going to go back together, so I will order a new set. But in the meantime, we'll have to make do with size comparisons and a weight check. So going over some kind of quick hits on the knife. So Laconico design, S35 VN blade, nice flat grind there. Anodized titanium with a lock bar insert, over travel stop, this nice milled clip, and I think that's about it. So this knife comes in at 4.4 ounces, so not necessarily lightweight, but also not too bad. Because I can't measure the knife, let's put it up next to the Spidey Chef, which is a similarly sized knife. Let's do the PM2, and because it's Rybo's channel, throw out the K-Bar Dozier as well. So you can see it's a larger knife, not too big. I think it's, well, as a lot of things on this knife, I think it's just about perfectly sized. And let's go ahead and get into it. So things that I like about this knife, well, take it in. Pretty much everything you see. So for some background, so I do have somewhat of an art background. I have never really considered myself a minimalist in any sense of the word, design-wise or in terms of philosophy of life. However, Laconico does have a very minimalist design, and honestly, some of his stuff I'm really not drawn to because I think it's too bare. But this to me is absolutely perfect. I really, really like the way that this looks. Good design is kind of everything you need and nothing you don't. I think that is exactly what this knife is. This knife has everything you need, and it doesn't have any gimmicks or anything that you don't need. I mean, this is very simple, and there's kind of beauty in the simplicity of it. It just does a lot of things really well. And so from a design perspective, I think that this is a phenomenal design. So that's kind of the first thing. I really, really like the design. I like the Laconico design. I think that this is a very, very nice touch to have this laser etching right here. Keeps the blade just really, really clean. Kind of gives you a maker's mark without it being etched, without it being kind of printed on here, which I always thought was weird. I wish I had my rat too, so I could really drive that home. But that is a really, really cool touch. That just looks effortless. It kind of embodies the knife, right? Like it's out of the way, it's tucked in, you can still see it. It's perfect, right? So design, A+, absolutely love it. Other things, so let's talk ergonomics first, because you would look at this knife and maybe think it's not the most ergonomic knife, and it's not the most ergonomic knife for sure. I can point to a knife like the Code 4 here that is a little bit more tailored to my hand, and while I typically don't like that, I think it works well here. This is very, very straightforward, right? There's not a whole lot going on here, and yet, much like the K-Bar Dozier, which also kind of does not force your hand anywhere, just gives you all this space. This gives you a ton of real estate to work with. It does force your hand behind that very small flipper, but naturally I think that's where I want to be. With this blade, I don't find myself wanting to choke up anymore. And so you have a very, very nicely sized handle. You have, I think, what is fairly spacious in between here. So, I mean, that's not a hot spot, but that's maybe one thing that you feel is, you know, the fact that you do have a little bit of space in between here. I don't know why, but on this knife, I feel that a little bit more. But apart from that, it just feels really good in the hand. At least for my hands, the pocket clip doesn't really bother me. I can see how it is a longer clip, and so that may get in the way for some people. For me, it doesn't really. It seems to fall kind of right in here with my hands, and I don't really notice it. But all in all, just a great feeling knife to do what you want to do. There are certainly knives that feel better than this, and I don't want to make it out to seem that this is some I don't know, perfect ergonomic design, but it doesn't feel bad. I mean, it really feels quite comfortable, and I think that this is about where you'd want it to cut with. So ergonomics, I'd say, are pretty good. Not excellent, but pretty good for a knife like this. I also like that just with this design, somewhat, to me, actually reminiscent of like a Sabenza design, right? With this handle and these curves. And all in all, I just think it feels really good in the hand. Enough about that. Other things. So I actually really love the pocket clip. I am not necessarily I'm not an anti-milled clip guy. I'm not all for them. Like, I just like a good clip that works really well. And this clip works really, really well. I've compared this with the Keen. I don't know if I did a video on that. I can't remember. Not the Keen. This is the Keen. I've compared it with the Crux from Ferrum Forge, which has a very similar clip, but maybe half the size or 3/4 of the size. I think this works a lot better. I think that longer length gives you a little bit more spring tension. It just really pops in the pocket. It holds very, very solid. I don't really need a deep carry on something like this. I think that's totally fine. Gives you something to grab onto. All in all, the clip has been really, really nice. It's thin, but it's long, and I think it has the perfect amount of spring tension, and I really, really like that. I know some people complain, where the clip kind of goes here, but I think that it is making contact on the actual handle and not the lock bar, and so I think that's good to go. I haven't had any issues with it, but yeah. So the clip is solid. Other things I like, obviously, you got to talk about the blade, right? That is a slicey blade if I've ever seen one. I mean, that is just a beautiful blade. I like the more belly towards the tip here. I like drop point. I think they may even call this a spear point, because maybe we're halfway there, but kind of a drop pointish blade. Really, really beautiful blade. I mean, this is a kind of blade that speaks to me for sure. Really, really like that. I like the design of it. I like the utility of it. It slices very, very well. Just all in all, very, very useful blade shape for everyday carry. I like having a little bit of a thicker spine even through the tip up here. Just really, really nice. I like that there's not much printed on here. Massdrop on a pocket knife is a little bit weird for me, so I'm not a huge fan of that, because having a web set on a pocket knife is just kind of odd to me. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Not a huge deal. Obviously, the steel is a great steel choice, S35VN. I have more experience with S30V, and I believe the two are fairly similar. I think it's a great steel choice. I am not a huge steel guy. I like a good steel that's easy to sharpen, that doesn't rust, and I think that's this guy, at least from how much I've carried it, definitely holds up to those standards. But I can't really get too technical about that, because it's just not my wheelhouse. But great steel, great blade shape, just a really slicey, nice looking blade. Clip was good, I said. So another thing that I think really makes this knife, and this is what really made me fall in love with this knife. There's really one thing that made me fall in love with this knife, and that is the action. This knife has phenomenal action. I mean, it is unbelievable and absolutely drop shutty. It's been very difficult to fail the deploy on this knife. I mean, you give it the slightest push and it just flies out just beautifully. Let's see if I can fail it. Nope, not that time. Let's see if I can do it. There we go. But you really have to try to fail to deploy, which is about one of the best things you can say about the action of a knife. I mean, this is just glassy smooth, just absolutely glassy smooth. I love it. One of the most fidgety knives that I have, especially given that it's so drop shutty. Now, you know, on bearings, it's you know, probably not going to be your camping knife and something that you want to get all gritty and whatnot. But honestly, you know, for guys like us that have cases of knives, doesn't have to be, right? But just an incredible action, very, very fidgety, just a joy to carry and to cut with, and to kind of just sit here and play with, which I have annoyed many of my relatives by doing that. So other things that I like, surprisingly, I really like the purple. So if you know me, and I'm just going to throw a couple knives on camera real quick, you know that I kind of have a type. I am fairly understated when it comes to pocket knives. I'm just going to keep going because every knife that I pull out of the case is either some kind of OD color or black. So yeah, I mean, this is just what I have in front of me. But you can see that I definitely have a type, and that type is not crazy colors. That type is OD green, black, fairly understated. I mean, I do like things that, you know, look nice, and I like colors from time to time. But in general, I'm not a crazy knife color guy. I don't really like blue accents and real, you know, poppy stuff like that. But man, I really like this purple. It's so crazy. It's an anodized color, and so you get some of these blues, and it really does kind of change in the light. Kind of iridescent, and it's very hard to capture that, but you get hints of pink, purple, blue. I don't know. There's something cool about it. It's nice to change things up for a while, you know, every once in a while. It's kind of a funky thing. For this to be what may be my favorite knife, one of, I would say, at least top three. I don't know. It's kind of fun to have a goofy color. So I actually really like the color. And in general, I like the colors that they offer. Just a straight titanium, the bronze. There's a couple. I think there's another one. And they offer the kind of milled line in the middle here. That looks kind of like a fuller. I like that version. I'm not a huge fan of the circle version where they have like the circles all the way up here. Excuse me, milled out circles all the way on both sides. Both sides? No, it can't be both sides. It has to be this side. Yeah, not a huge fan about that, but to each his own. Man, I'm really struggling with my voice apparently. Obviously, things that I like are kind of what Massdrop does, right? So the lock bar insert, which is very nice. I have experienced no lock stick or anything like it. And then the over travel stop, which I can't say that I necessarily have experienced like the benefits of, but it's nice to have there. It's a fairly thin lock bar up here and especially down here where the cutaway is. And so I can definitely see the benefits of having that as kind of a safety device. All right. I hope that does it for things that I like. I mean, I think I've pretty much nitpicked every little part of the knife and talked about how much I love it. Things that I don't like, there's just a couple things. Really one thing with the knife and then one other thing. So the flipper tab. This is, to me, the one drawback of the knife. The flipper tab itself is fantastic. I think it's the perfect size. It allows you enough grip on it, or allows you enough space on it to deploy the knife. Absolutely. I think it's, you know, it's unobtrusive, really stays out of the way. The only issue with it is it needs jimping. Absolutely. I mean, you absolutely need some jimping on here. I find myself kind of slipping off of that flipper tab quite often, and if this had just a little bit of jimping, this would be just, I don't think I could find anything wrong with this knife. Nitpick things like the lanyard hole. I don't get upset about lanyard holes. This one's not necessarily super creative and just kind of looks fine. I could never see myself carrying a lanyard on this knife, so I think I would prefer without that, but that's not really a huge deal. So the only other thing I don't like about this knife is this knife is an absolute keeper for me. This is not going anywhere. I've even thought about buying a second one because I have serious problems. But here's the thing. If you strip a screw, if you do anything like that, from what I understand, you cannot get replacement parts. If you contact Massdrop, if you contact, I guess, Laconico, you will not be able to get replacement parts, and so you will kind of have to hobble that together from your knife collection or maybe other knives that share similar size bits and whatnot. But from what I understand, they do not stock parts for these and screws and things like that. That just really sucks, because typically when I spend $100, $150 on a knife, I want to have it for the long run, right? I want to buy something that is maintainable in the long run, something that I can take care of and use for years and years to come. And that really sucks if I am limited to what's here. If a part breaks, I can't fix it. That really flies in the face of like I don't want to buy into consumer culture. I want to get something that I'm going to enjoy for a long time and take care of. And if I can't do that, that's really unfortunate. And so because I think they're not a big knife brand, they don't stock replacement parts, that really is just a kind of a bad spot on what is otherwise just an incredible knife. So if you can't tell, final conclusions are, this is a strong carry. This is a like in my pocket most days carry. This is one of my favorite knives of all time. Just really love it. I feel like I'm turning a little bit into a snob, because a couple months ago I had never owned a titanium frame lock, and now I have several of them, and I really like some of them. So I'm not trying to get away from the budget stuff, but there's some really incredible stuff in this price point, and to me this is a shining example. I love this knife. It is not going to go anywhere. I am glad that I got the very loud purple version, and yeah, I love this knife. So I'm sure that you're kind of sick of me just swooning over this this beautiful little knife. So we'll call it a day, and I'll see you next time.